Marco Polo, the renowned Venetian explorer, was left to rot in a Genoese prison for nearly 3 years, his once illustrious reputation reduced to tatters, a fate that would have been unimaginable for the man who had once been the toast of the Kublai Khan's court. It was during this bleak period, as the stench of decay and desperation clung to his tattered clothes, that Polo began to dictate his tales of adventure and bravery to a fellow inmate, rustic Hello da Pisa, a writer of romance novels. The stories that Polo recounted, of exotic lands and untold riches, would eventually become the basis for his famous book, Illinois Million, or The Travels of Marco Polo, a tome that would captivate the imagination of medieval Europe and cement Polo's status as one of the greatest explorers in history. Yet, despite the fantastical nature of his tales, Polo's own life was marked by a series of brutal and ruthless decisions, made in the pursuit of wealth and power, that would ultimately lead to his downfall. Polo's journey to the east, which began in 1271, was not an altruistic quest for knowledge, but rather a calculated attempt to expand his family's trading empire, and to establish themselves as major players in the lucrative spice and silk trade. Accompanied by his father, Niccolo, and his uncle, Maffeo, Polo traveled along the famed Silk Road, a network of ancient trade routes that stretched from China to the Mediterranean, and which was fraught with danger and uncertainty. As they journeyed deeper into the unknown, the Polo family encountered numerous obstacles, including treacherous mountain passes, raging rivers, and hostile tribes, all of which they overcame through a combination of cunning, diplomacy, and sheer force of will. Upon arriving at the court of Kublai Khan, the Polo family was met with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion, as the Khan sought to gauge their intentions and to determine whether they were worthy of his trust. It was during this period, as the Polos navigated the complex web of court politics, that Marco Polo began to form a close bond with the Khan, who was so impressed by the young Venetian's intelligence and audacity that he appointed him as his special envoy, tasking him with a series of secret missions and diplomatic assignments. As Polo traveled throughout the Khan's vast empire, he witnessed firsthand the brutal efficiency of the Mongol war machine, which had conquered vast swaths of territory through a combination of military might and strategic alliances. Despite the many wonders and marvels that Polo encountered on his travels, his experiences were also marked by a deep sense of disillusionment and horror, as he struggled to come to terms with the harsh realities of life in a medieval society. The Yuan dynasty, which ruled over China during Polo's time, was a brutal and authoritarian regime in which the ruling elite maintained their power through a combination of terror, propaganda, and strategic alliances. As Polo navigated this treacherous landscape, he was forced to confront the darker aspects of human nature, including the ubiquity of slavery, the prevalence of torture, and the casual disregard for human life. As the years passed, Polo became increasingly embroiled in the intrigue and politics of the Khan's court, where he formed alliances with powerful nobles and advised the Khan on matters of state and diplomacy. However, his influence was not without its costs, as he became the target of jealousy and resentment from those who felt threatened by his power and prestige. In 1292, after nearly 2 decades of service to the Khan, Polo and his family were finally allowed to return to Venice, where they were greeted as heroes and celebrated for their bravery and cunning. However, their triumph was short-lived, as Polo soon found himself embroiled in a bitter conflict between Venice and Genoa, 2 of the most powerful maritime republics in the Mediterranean. In 1298, while commanding a Venetian galley, Polo was captured by the Genoese and imprisoned, an event that marked the beginning of a long and brutal period of incarceration, during which he was subjected to physical and psychological torture. It was during this period, as Polo's body and mind were pushed to the limit, that he began to dictate his stories to rustic Hello da Pisa, writer who was equally fascinated and horrified by the tales of adventure and brutality that Polo recounted. As the stories poured out of Polo, like blood from a wounded animal, they seemed to take on a life of their own, as if they were a form of catharsis, a way for Polo to exorcise the demons that had haunted him for so long. And yet, despite the power and beauty of Polo's stories, they are also marked by a deep sense of melancholy and foreboding, as if the author is aware that his time is running out, and that he will soon be forced to confront the darkness that has haunted him for so long. As we listen to Polo's tales, we are reminded of the brutal and unforgiving nature of the world, in which the strong prey on the weak, and in which the pursuit of power and wealth is often accompanied by a complete disregard for human life and dignity. In the end, it is this sense of darkness and despair that haunts us, long after the stories have been told, and the curtains have been drawn on Polo's remarkable, and ultimately, tragic life. The shadows that Polo encountered on his journey, the horrors that he witnessed, and the brutal decisions that he made, continue to haunt us, a reminder of the darkness that lurks at the heart of human nature, waiting to pounce, like a predator, on its unsuspecting prey.